wherewithal to do much better. And so I commend it to Treasury. I spoke to Undersecretary Adeyemo. I mean, this is one example of many that we can be doing. Senator Young.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to thank our witnesses for being here. Such an important hearing. Undersecretary Fernandez, can you identify the specific Australian economic action that prompted China to block imports of Australian beef, wine, barley, and coal in 2020?
Identify
the specific economic action, that prompted China to take those actions to block imports from Australia in 2020.
I believe that the one that I remember, Senator, is asking for an investigation of the origins of COVID-19.
But it's not an economic action.
Right.
What economic action prompted that?
I would have to go back and
relatedly, can you identify the specific South Korean economic action that prompted China to boycott Hyundai and Kia and to stifle tourism to South Korea in 2016?
You're testing my history now, but I think it's THAADs.
Yeah, okay. Also not economic in nature. And so, I mean, that's my point. I'm not playing a game here. I'm trying to illustrate through these cases that Chinese economic coercion is not about economics. It is about weaponizing economic interdependence in furtherance of geopolitical aims, right? Geopolitics through other means. It's a policy to systematically deter, where possible, governments from exercising the full scope of their sovereignty. It's an assault on the liberal order, more broadly, by a state authoritarian government bent on shaping the 21st century to its ends. And failure to respond and deter coercion begets more coercion. I think you'd probably agree with that. We must see Beijing's actions not in isolation, but as part of a larger plan. Undersecretary Fernandez, as you noted, your office leads the department's efforts to understand and develop responses to economic coercion, like those cases I mentioned. How have you specifically utilized the frontline experiences and input of our State Department's diplomats in developing our department's tools to counter economic coercion, especially in countries that have recently experienced coercion?
Thank you for your question. This has been one of my priorities, Senator, building on Lithuania, but also looking back on the history at how we put together a toolbox in order to address it going forward. Because, as you well point out, it's going to happen again.
Have you sought the input of frontline diplomats as you focused on that?
Of course. I've been in a number of the countries you mentioned.
Yes, sir.
As well as in Lithuania. We've had several consultations with allies and partners in the G7 and in other countries as well to see what they have so that we can coordinate, because speed and coordination is important. We've had tabletop exercises internally in our own interagency.
Yeah.
15 agencies. We are spending, and we will continue to do this, we are spending a lot of time talking to both our allies and partners as well as some of the victims.
Well, I think that's really important. My time's very limited here. Those consultations, because this is a hydra-headed threat, and it continues to evolve. The PRC approach is evolving of late, especially in its more aggressive approach towards less vulnerable countries like the United States, large economy countries. This could be described as their most recent approach, a company-specific coercion versus a country-specific coercion. For example, the Chinese Communist Party has recently acted against Micron, a company, not a country. Given this shift, since you're in charge of this portfolio, sir, how are U.S. practices and responses evolving to counter this most recent shift by the Chinese?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things we've done specifically is we have spoken to business groups all the time I have, and my personal belief, my statement is that they cannot bank on well, or the PRC is banking on the fact that foreign investors will ignore the coercion to follow the siren song of markets. And we've seen, for example, you can take the counter-espionage law that's been passed by the PRC that expands the definition of espionage and what they've done to put in jail some consultants on the basis of counter-espionage. This is an issue. We continue to talk to them. In the case of Micron, we think it also may be an attempt to dissuade other countries.
Okay.
And so we are, our ambassador in the PRC in Beijing has reached out to, has been talking to the government about this, and we are all over this.
I believe you're attempting to answer my question. I don't feel satisfied that you've answered it, Mr. Undersecretary. Number one, about the consultation, how that's informed your toolkit of different economic coercion counter measures. And then number two, how you've responded based on those consultations that you alluded to by changing our strategy as the Chinese Communist Party has changed their approach to economic coercion. I think it's really important that you answer those at some point in short order. My time is, I'm over time. The only thing I would say, if the chairman will allow, is I think we need to do our work to empower the State Department, not just through additional resourcing, though I understand the importance of that, but ensuring there's an enduring legal framework to counter acts of economic coercion as administrations change. Who knows what will happen a couple of years from now. The bill that Senator Coons and I have put forward remains the only working piece of legislation that this body has before it on countering economic coercion, and we hope to involve the chairman and ranking member in working across the committee, either through that legislative effort or another, in fairly short order to empower the State Department to ensure this is an enduring and transparent effort. Thank you so much, Chairman.
Just briefly, I